Our next guest is Pat Bond. Pat is an attorney, is a principal with Bond, Dixon, and Conway in Wheaton. He is general counsel for the Aurora Election Commission, as well as the DuPage Election Commission and the International Association of Election Officials. Thanks for coming, Pat. Appreciate you taking your time to come down here. So as you know, we're talking about if the Election Commission, which is on the ballot, goes away, what will happen? And we would like, you're representing the Election Commission, so you could tell us what you think.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I think it's an important issue, certainly one that is near and dear to me as well as the voters of Aurora. As the county clerk indicated, this was established in 1933, became effective in 1934. And the Aurora citizens wanted to control their own destiny, and I think they recognized that having a bipartisan commission was important.
So it is bipartisan right now?
It is bipartisan.
Meaning you've got Democrats and Republicans on the...
Correct.
Okay.
You've got a representative. Statutorily it's structured, so there's a representative from both political parties, a Republican and a Democrat.
Okay.
And then you've got a third individual on there who is a registered voter within the city of Aurora. So all of these folks, they represent both political parties,
okay,
and they represent the city of Aurora.
And are those elected or appointed?
They are appointed by the chief judge
of the Kane County.
Of Kane County.
Okay, keep going.
And so what it did is, and the voters then thought it was important to control their own destiny. And interestingly, I saw an article. It was a letter to the editor by the mayor, and the mayor echoed that sentiment.
The mayor of Aurora?
The mayor of Aurora, indicated, and he echoed that sentiment, Mayor Irvin, and he said that our residents deserve the opportunity to decide for ourselves what we will and will not accept as a city in every way, shape, and form, including elections.
Okay.
And I think it's interesting that he's now saying, well, we're going to offload that which we've controlled among ourselves to the county. And what it does is it's important because it does a couple of things. It takes that bipartisan nature, the independent bipartisan nature of it, and puts it in into a single party elected official at the county level.
So because the Kane County clerk is elected and that is not apolitical, he's a Republican or Democrat, you're saying that could...
Well, you certainly lose the bipartisan nature of it and the voice. I mean, right now we've got Commissioner Lillian Perry. She's a vocal representative of the Democratic Party. She speaks on behalf of the African American community and gives a voice to both her. And we've got two women on the board as well that share the voice of those two women. So it's a very diverse group as opposed to a single politician having the control of that. In their office.
For the Kane, if it does get dissolved, and me as a moderator, I'm not going to take a position because the Aurora Business United is not about choosing sides, and as an alderman, we're apolitical too, non-political, which I think is great. But so another question would be, if it does go to the county, do they have a commission besides the clerk, and like a committee of Republicans and Democrats?
They do not. It would be a single party. Whoever is elected, it would be that party would be in charge of the office, which means they're statutorily in charge of the elections.
So, Pat, are there other? I know you're. International Association of Elected Officials, you're in charge of that, or you're their lawyer. Are there other cities that have election commissions, or is it just the counties?
No, there's 6 other cities in the state of Illinois, and throughout the country there's a number of those, but you've got Chicago, East St. Louis, Danville, Peoria, Galesburg, and Rockford, all for the very same reason. They like the model of the bipartisan nature of it. Their voices can be heard from both sides of the aisle, if you will. And they are representative to those people within their community that they represent, as opposed to, you've got Kane County is a large county, and you've got populations that are maybe a little more homogeneous in certain areas of the county, and Aurora is really a cause, they've got every different socioeconomic makeup, and you've got a board that represents that and that voice, including having and one of the things I think is important, if there is a change, there isn't currently any county clerk office in the city of Aurora. The statute says that the 3 major cities, there shall be a permanent location. There isn't. There hasn't been. There was some discussion of a mobile unit. That hasn't been in place since for the last 12 years.
So you're saying if it gets dissolved, he'll have to open an office?
Well, the statute requires it now,
Okay, so
even though there is
Okay. So even though the statute requires it now, it's not happening, so it doesn't mean that it will happen then?
Correct, and
Okay.
there's no, does not appear to be a penalty in the statute for not doing
Okay.
that. And just by way of example, we had a voter,
Okay.
an African-American individual, who had to get to the county and it took, I think there was a 2-hour start to finish.
To get the bus up there?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, and lack of transportation as opposed to being able to vote in their own community in
So
their city.
do you know, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you, but do you know if this is going to save the taxpayers money, and if so, which Aurora taxpayers?
Well, that's an interesting argument. I've heard it before. You know, the cost of elections is you've got ballots, you've got personnel.
Right.
And that's really the nature of it. And it doesn't matter if you shift it from here to there, somebody still is going to be required to pay for those. Those are fixed costs. You can't get rid of the fixed
Okay.
costs. A marginal economy of scale by consolidating them, but
Marginal, okay.
very marginal. You
Okay.
still got to pay the election judges. You still got to have the ballots. You still need to pay for the software. You still need to pay for the hardware. And there is an issue with the equipment. The city of Aurora currently uses equipment from a vendor that allows for both touch screen and a paper ballot. People like to put their ballot into
Right.
a machine. The system in the Kane County does not. It's a touch screen only. And there's been court cases, and I won't belabor that. You're a lawyer, but some of the people watching may not be. But the courts have said everybody should have the same access, and equal protection says the same for you, the same for me, the
Right.
same for others. And by putting in 2 different systems throughout the county, that raises a serious question as to whether this equipment could even be used in that system.
So eventually, if not sooner than later, he'll have to buy, or this county, if they'd have to buy all new equipment or used equipment of the same that he has currently.
Exactly, and
Okay.
some of that equipment, becomes outdated and is not readily available, and so
Okay.
you're going to have a significant expense to try and bring that through into the county-wide and perhaps a whole new system.
So you said something that's interesting. There isn't that much economies of scale because for each precinct, which I think there's 70 in Aurora?
There's 73.
73, they'll have to have the same number of election judges?
Correct.
That's statutory Illinois statute?
You've got it, yeah. Now, we've clustered poll locations, but you still have to have, the election judges are mandated. So you're going to have the same number of people who are in the
Working
polling
at the-
locations.
okay.
And, the locations need to be readily available, accessible, and so forth. And the way that we operate now, we use public buildings. We don't pay
Okay.
for the use of those public
Right.
buildings. So you've got the second largest city in the state of Illinois has 2 full-time staff members.
So you said these other 6 or so cities, most of them seem like they're downstate, but you said they like the non-political nature of it. Do you see any advantages of that besides that? I mean, do they get more voters? Is there a higher turnout, hopefully, than we get here? Do you know?
You get a more of a participation because people are going to their city hall, they're going to places in their community that they're familiar with. They don't
Okay.
have to go to the county seat
Okay.
in order to do that, to register and some of the other things that can be done. Yeah, there are other methods of doing that are
Right.
available online and so forth, but if you're challenged financially, you may not have access to a computer to do your online voter registration and some of those.
So if the Kane County clerk doesn't open an office, everyone would have to go to Geneva.
Correct.
And then you're saying there's a statute that if he opens one in Aurora, he might have to open one in another city?
Well, the statute provides for that there be permanent voting locations.
Okay.
And it goes by population. The population of Kane County falls within the threshold where should be 3 permanent voting locations. One of them can be the county seat in
Okay.
Geneva. The other 2 have to be the other 2 major cities with the highest population within that jurisdiction.
So Pat, in anticipation of this, the negative feedback, the people who want to close it want to save money. That's what I understand, and I believe that's hopefully what they want. But there are people, true or not, that are saying that this is women, anti-African-American, anti-people in wheelchairs, that it's going to be harder to get there. If he doesn't open an office, or the Kane County Clerk doesn't, they'd have to go to Geneva. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, I don't know that the motivation is that, but the impact
Yeah,
certainly
that's what I mean. I don't mean the motivation, because I don't think there's that.
I definitely think that the impact
You do?
will
Okay.
affect that, because you've got a community right now that is served by the Aurora Election Commission. It's accessible, there's public transportation to the facilities, and the Election Commission is very cognizant of where we put our voting and polling locations in order to accommodate that population.
Okay.
And so the impact is going to be that it is going to have a disenfranchising impact on certain communities. Certainly the disabled community is going to be challenged in order to be able to try and get there to Geneva. You've got the black community is as well. And so again, I don't think the motivation of any of the folks that are behind this, that's not their intention, but that is the unintended consequence of that decision. And again, the saving money, it'd be one thing if somebody said, we are going to reduce your taxes by X amount, and that's just not the case. You've got a certain fixed cost, and there's not double taxation. I know I've heard that argument. There's only one. If the county has to foot the bill for the elections, they're going to have to increase the cost to do that, to offset that. The city's not paying the county to take over those services.
So the newspaper articles are saying that we're going to save 500. Aurora, the city of Aurora, is going to save 500 to 700,000 on the elections. Right now, it's a levy on the tax bill, right?
Correct.
And then Aurora pays whatever they pay. So it'll be transferred to the county to pay for the election?
Well, the county is going to be, somebody's got to pick up that cost.
Right, whatever it is.
And the people who live in Aurora are going to be taxpayers that are going to have to pick up that additional cost.
And it'll be the people who live in Kane County in Aurora, right?
Correct.
Because DuPage section of Aurora, which is the Far East Side, has their own election commission, right?
That is correct.
Now, are they going to dissolve too? Because I heard they're trying to, or not?
There is an advisory referendum. There was some legislation introduced in the last legislative session to consolidate that into the county clerk. It did not succeed. There was an advisory referendum in DuPage County to get the sentiment of the voters to see if they want that to be merged into the county clerk.
So in March, same time, the DuPage voters are going to say yes, they want to close the DuPage Election Commission, but it won't be binding. It'll only be an advisory, sort of like a survey, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what about, do you know the Kendall and Will portions of Aurora?
Kendall and Will portions of Aurora, there's a minimal amount of that. And one of the things that they may not currently be paying their fair share.
Okay.
And so, that's one of the things that had been talked about over the years with the city, but because they were so negligible, the city was under the impression, and I was participating in those meetings, that it wasn't worth the man hours to try and collect for that, the relatively little money that would be generated or come from the tax revenue from those other two counties.
Okay. Fair enough. You have anything else to add?
No, I think it's important for the people to know when they go to the polls, there isn't going to be, nobody's saying we're going to give you, abate your taxes or refund this portion of it. They're fixed costs. They have to be taken care of by the taxpayers. These very same taxpayers who have been told they're going to save money, that's just simply not the case. The elections still have to be conducted, and there's a fixed cost for doing that, and they're going to sacrifice the bipartisan nature of it and the service to the community. Again, the African American community and the disabled communities are going to be impacted by that, and perhaps a trip to Geneva as opposed to a trip to your city hall.
Great. Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.